Welcome to the Radiant Visalia podcast. Join us at one of our two services, 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. Download the Church Center app or visit our website, radiantvisalia.com, to stay connected with us. All right, enjoy.
There is a heavenly city that I'm compelled to find.
Last night I was worshiping outdoor in the amphitheater with you all, and Grant Hyde was standing next to me, and he said, "Hey, do you ever look out and just think, this is your church?" And then he quickly corrected himself to be more theologically sound. And he was like, "Well, it's not really yours, is it? And I was like, "No, it's not." And he said, but this is what's come of you guys, sowing and investing your lives. And I had to, unfortunately, tell him, not often, actually. It's sometimes with our kids, that we look at our kids fondly and think, "Man, what did I do to deserve this?" But most of the time, you're like, "God, what did I do to deserve this?" Same with our spouses, right? There are those times where you're like, "God, you've been so kind. What did I do to deserve this?" But there's other times where you're like, "God, I didn't do anything to you, and you gave me this." And it's just really unfortunate that I don't often look out and just realize with gratitude all that God has done. And I know that's not just my disease. I know it's yours as well. It's yours as well, right? Okay. Tiffany and I, along with a group of friends, we planted Radiant Church in 2005. And that is, by the way, over 20 years ago. And in 2008, I remember vividly preaching through the parables and talking about that famous trilogy of parables in Luke's gospel. They're meant to go together: the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. And a parable's like a simple story that Jesus would tell that would kind of convey a really profound spiritual reality. And I remember preaching these in 2008. So we're 3 years into leading this church. And Jesus told these parables because he was trying to answer a bigger question. He had critics. Those critics were called Pharisees, and those Pharisees had questions about his ministry. And the big question they had was where'd you get these friends of yours? And by the way, it was a valid question. They grew up on Psalm 1. "Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers." I think it's a great question. Why are you standing with, walking with, and sitting with those guys? The scriptures are really clear. And these religious leaders, they've got concerns about Jesus' company, and really, he's trying to answer the question, where'd you get these friends? Why? Why do you keep company with sinners? And so he tells the story, the parable of the lost sheep. A shepherd has 100 sheep, and he loses one. It's a 1% loss. I'm not great with math, but I can do that one. Then he tells the story of a lost coin. A woman has 10 coins, and she loses one. That's a 10% loss. It's a little more significant. Then the climax of it is this lost son. A man has 2 sons and he loses one. That's a 50% loss. And Jesus is essentially saying to his critics, I'm doing exactly what you knuckleheads would be doing. If you lost a sheep, you lost a coin, or you lost a son. I'm seeking to save that which is lost. And the shepherd doesn't say, yeah, it's all right. I got 99 more. And the woman doesn't say, I've got $900 in my savings account. It's all right. And the father certainly doesn't say, I've still got one son. And some of you parents know that all too well. It doesn't matter how many of your kids are doing well. You're sick inside for the one who's missing. And the father certainly doesn't say, oh, it's fine, I've still got a son at home. He says, no, there's one. And in 2008, as I taught these parables, I'd heard them my whole life. But in 2008, I remember teaching these parables, and I noticed for the first time the urgency in them. That this is not a shepherd saying, I've got a flock of 99, and I think I'd like to add another sheep to the fold. I think I'll get one. And this is not a woman saying, my savings account is $900. I'd like to make it $1,000. I think I'll save a little more. And this is not a father saying, well, I've got a son. I'm enjoying his company. I think I'll grow the family. No, a shepherd had 100 sheep and he lost one. A woman had 10 coins and she lost one. Right? A father had 2 sons and he lost one. And that's very different than saying, we've got one and I think we'll have another. Right? There's a big difference between I think I need to get a new wallet and I think I lost my wallet. And the difference is urgency. There's a big, big difference between I've got 2 kids and I think we might have a third. Or I've got 3 kids and I can't find Luca. Luca's gone. Has anyone seen Luca? And the difference is urgency. In 2008, when I taught these parables, I thought it'd be a powerful illustration to fake lose my own daughter. At that time, Radiant Church met at the Cellar Door. If you're not familiar with Visalia, the Cellar Door is a wine bar and venue on Main Street and Court, maybe the busiest corner in our entire town, which is every street in San Francisco, but this is an important street for us, okay? There's cars on it. You can't find a place to park, and you can't ride your horse down this road. It's a crazy street. And our church is really young, and there's not really a kids department. We have 2 kids, Isaac Reynoso and Avery Aiklin. And Avery's 3 years old, and you'd come on a Sunday morning to this wine bar, and it just smelled like yeast. And then we'd have to clean the bathrooms, and you're like, why'd you throw up in the urinal? Like, you could have just made it into the toilet, but you chose to throw up in the urinal. What I'm trying to say is there was no nursery in this venue. And we weren't really mindful, actually, of even the kids' work. And so I have this idea. I'm like, Tiff, to illustrate this message and the urgency of it, I'm going to park way down Main Street, and I want you just to stay in the car with Avery. And I'm going to pretend to lose her. And so I did that. And my church moves quickly from looking in the few crevices of this venue to being out on Main Street, on the busiest corner. Sorry, this is supposed to be the funny part. I mean, my church got very active very fast. And more importantly, we'd lost all sense of self or dignity. People were pounding on windows. Have you seen a 3-year-old? We'd lost sight of ourselves. Can you imagine a person who was in that meeting saying, yeah, we'll look for when the sermon's over, Travis. Why don't you continue to make those 3 points? No, we lost it. We left the building very fast. We're combing Main Street, and then I have my wife just kind of parade back into the venue with Avery. It's so funny. I mean, I was probably 27, and I thought the reaction from my church would be like, "Wow, what a powerful illustration." I thought they would sit at my feet like Mary of Bethany and say, "Teach us more, O wise one." Church was over. I ruined church. Amy Stillwater, she was crying. And she came back. She was so mad that she left. She was like, whatever respect I had for you, I have lost. And I don't know if I can ever listen to your preaching again. That was the impact that it had. Seeking and saving the lost is not just what Jesus was commissioned to do. It's what we're commissioned to do. And I think when we talk about faith, it's right to talk about waiting. When we talk about faith, it's right to talk about delay. When we talk about faith, it's right to talk about disappointment. It's right. It's right to talk about Abraham. It's right to talk about imitating those who've gone before us, those whose faith was deepened because they had to depend on God for the promises of God to come to pass. Faith certainly requires what Willie referred to, a long obedience in the same direction, one foot in front of the other. But what I also want to say is that faith is urgent. And faith has a sense of or else. And faith has a nowness to it. Now. And I think it's what came forth as Tiffany shared this morning. Definitely God says, follow. And it requires faith. And God says, wait, and it requires faith. And God says, I'm with you, and it requires faith. But God says, now, and it requires faith. And there's something that's coming up, and there's something that I believe is that thread that's weaving this weekend together. It's what Sam shared. The harvest. Is upon us. And faith is immediate. And at times, it does not wait, it does not delay. If you have a Bible, would you open it to John chapter 4? The text will be on the screen. I just needed time to blow my nose. John chapter 4. We'll just start at the end of this story in verse 27. And it starts by saying just then, which, would require us to ask the question when. Jesus had just revealed himself to a Samaritan woman. He had just revealed his messiahness to a Samaritan woman. And famously, he promised this woman that living water would become a well inside of her. So instead of being forever thirsty, and unable to quench her thirst, that he would quench this deep down thirst and she would become a well of living water to others. And Jesus covered the shame of her 5 failed marriages. She was drawing water at a strange time in the day because she was ostracized because of her sin and shame, and she had been shunned. And then Jesus restored this woman to dignity by asking her a question. He told her he was the promised Messiah, and this all happened while Jesus' disciples went to get lunch. They took off to get something to eat, and Jesus stayed put in Samaria. So they return with food, and they find him chatting with a woman, and it's not just any old woman, it's a Samaritan woman. A Samaritan woman who, as you know, has something of a past. It goes on to say his disciples returned, and they were surprised. They were surprised to find him talking with a woman. Why do you sit, stand, walk with this woman? But no one asked the question, what do you want? Or why are you talking with her? Why don't you turn to your neighbor and don't say anything, but just give them a look that says, what do you want and why are you here? And the first person to break loses. Hold it. Just look. Just look upon them and say, why are you here? And what do you want? Well, that didn't work. So the woman gets this look, and we've all gotten this look. And without even saying anything, the woman decides, oh, it's my time to go. And then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to town and said to the people, come see a man who doesn't look at me like every other man. Could this be the Messiah? And these Samaritans came out of the town and they made their way toward him. And meanwhile, his disciples urged him, Rabbi, you got to eat something. But he said to them, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. And then his disciples said to each other, oh, maybe she brought him some food. And then he's like, no, you dorks. My food, guys, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. Don't you have a saying? Don't you have a well-worn saying, church? Don't you have something that you've said over and over again as a way of justifying not responding immediately? Oh, it's still 4 months until the harvest. We got time. That's one of the things that came up over and over in our man morning as the generations spoke. That most of us go through life thinking we've got time. And then decades pass. And we realize we don't have any time. I tell you, open your eyes. Look at the fields. They're ripe for harvest. Even now, say that with me, now. The one who reaps draws a wage and harvests a crop for eternal life, so that the sower and the reaper may be glad together. Thus the saying, one sows and another reaps, is true. I sent you to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work, and you have reaped the benefits of their labor. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. that he told me everything I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them. And he stayed 2 days. And because of his words, many more became believers. And they said to this woman who was a witness, "We no longer believe just because of what you said. Now we've heard for ourselves, and we know that this man is really the Savior of the entire world." It's harvest season. Do not say 4 more months. Don't say, "I've got time." Do not delay. Stop saying 4 more months. As I thought about my own tendency to delay, as I thought about my own tendency to say, "I've got time," as I've thought about my own tendency to pull up in my driveway, see my neighbor, and think, "Today's not the day of salvation. Tomorrow I'll have time to have a long conversation with my neighbor." As I thought about the reason that I punt, I came up with at least 4 things that I see in this text. 4 reasons you and I put off what God's calling us to right now. The first is that we expect hostility, not opportunity. Jesus would say that the harvest is plentiful, but we have a scarcity mindset. We would say these people are resistant. Jesus would say they're ripe. And when Jesus walked into a room, he wasn't expecting resistance. He knew there was opportunity, and he knew there were people there who were ripe for the picking. And I just wonder what would shift for us if we walked around not with a scarcity mindset, but believing that the harvest is plentiful and not expecting resistance, but going, "Oh, someone in here is going to fall off the tree. I get to finish his work today. Who is it?" I believe that this scarcity mindset is brought on by a narrative that we've been preaching to ourselves for many years. We're the minority. We're losing ground. No one sees things the way we do. We're persecuted. The state of California as a whole is just against us. They want to take our kids. They want to take our schools. And it feeds fear. And you know what fear does in your life? It encourages you and invites you to save your life. And if you save your life, you'll lose it. And if you lose your life for his sake and the sake of the kingdom, you'll find it. There's a narrative that has formed, and you better believe this same narrative was between Jews and Samaritans as well. You better believe that the disciples go into this territory expecting hostility, not opportunity. There's a whole history. There's a whole narrative. There's a whole Instagram feed just feeding you. Your neighbors are resistant to your message, not your neighbors are ripe for the harvest. When you walk into a room, you're hated. You'll be mistreated. You'll be persecuted. That's happened a couple times in my life. Most of the time, people are interested. They have questions. But I tell myself, I'm hated. I'm resisted. They don't want to hear what I have to say because it gets me off the hook. And I get to delay my obedience because I'm persecuted. What if we walked into every room, break room at work, going, the harvest is plentiful today and somebody's ripe? What would shift for us? I would invite you to not expect hostility, but expect in life opportunities for harvest. And I renounce over us and our churches and our cities a scarcity mindset that we can employ because it harbors our fear and gets us off the hook. Quit telling yourself that story. Quit hunkering down, quit hoarding, and lose your life for the sake of the gospel. Number 2, it's not just that we think people aren't ready or ripe. We think we're not ready or ripe. And we think we need to have the right answers. And I'm telling you, all you need today is the right questions. People are going to get saved because you're listening. And you're listening generously because it's that rare. Podcasts are everywhere. You know what a podcast can't do? Listen generously to somebody. Information is everywhere, and the noise is loud. And listening is rare. In fact, when it happens to me, I almost want to stop the person. Have you ever been talking to someone like Lindsay Baldwin? And you're like, oh crap, she's out like listening to me. You're like, I don't know what to do now. I better watch what I say. She's actually listening to me. I think people are going to come into the kingdom because we get good not at talking and talking louder than the next person, but listening and listening better than the next person. And this woman starts, this whole deal with this woman starts with Jesus saying, hey, could you get me a cup of water? And she's like, what? Why are you asking me a question? I thought you'd be telling me what I should do, how I should do it. Why are you asking me a question? And I'm telling you right now, you don't need the right answers. You need the right questions. And then when they answer, you need another question. And then when they answer that, just another question. Because I know some of us are scared to share our faith because we're like, I don't know how old the earth is. Neither does your neighbor. And so you can ask him, how old do you think the earth is? They can say, I think probably millions of years. Well, why do you think that? Well, I heard it in class. Well, how do you think it came to be a million years ago? Well, I think maybe some sort of big bang. I don't know. It's interesting. Why do you think that? You just keep going. I'm not joking. Just the next question. You don't have to have all the answers. You have to have the right questions. And if you listen generously, people are going to lean in. They love it. Nobody's listening to them. There's so much noise. Nobody's listening. Have the right questions. Hey, I see you running a lot. You like to run? Yeah, I do love to run. Why do you love to run? Well, I just love to stay fit. Why do you love to stay fit? Actually, I don't love to stay fit. This isn't physical. This is mental. I'm crippled with anxiety. And if I don't run, I can't actually get through the day. Oh, that's crazy. Why are you crippled with anxiety? Well, my father cheated on my mother because he said my mother let herself go. And so if I don't stay fit, I'm going to lose my... Oh, wow. Oh, now we're having a real conversation. And it's not about hokas. It's not about running shoes. We're talking about the things of life. And it's just the right questions. Number 3, and this is maybe the worst one, We're just nearsighted. We're nearsighted. We have these appetites that start to direct us. The disciples are like, hey, do whatever you want in Samaria. It's lunchtime. And I'm not hungry for another prayer meeting with some other person, rando, that you found. Let's take lunch. And we're hungry. And there's these appetites. And most of us just can't see past our own needs. And that's true for all of us. I was listening to my buddy Dylan, who I talked about earlier, but he was talking about nearsighted being the only ailment that you have that makes you sound like you're in good shape. You know? Like you break your right arm and the doctor doesn't say you're left-armed now. He says, no, you broke your right arm, you know? But for the nearsighted person, they're like, hey, well, good news is you're really good at being nearsighted. They make it sound like it's some asset, some tool in the belt. Hey, you got super good near sight. And this is our issue, is that sometimes I think we think it's a good thing, like that we should be nearsighted. Well, the father saw that son coming from far off. He was staring at the horizon, not just at his immediate needs. He was watching, he was waiting for the first sign of somebody coming home, and then he humiliated himself by running after that son who was returning. And Jesus would say, look up, look up, look, look, look. Well, I've got these bills, and I've got these needs, and I've got my own issues, and I used to think I was an Enneagram 8, but now I'm an Enneagram 9, and I think it's because of my dad. Look up, look up. Look past your own kids. Look past your own needs. Look past your own front yard. Look up. Look up. Look. It's plentiful. No, it's super scarce and I'm persecuted and everybody hates me. Look up. Look up. See the harvest. See that the laborers are few. Look past your own needs. Your own family, your own bills, your own issues. I get it. I have all of those things. Look beyond it. Sometimes we're not looking. And Jesus screams, look up. Sometimes we're looking, but we're not looking with the eyes of compassion. Jesus would say something very similar to this in Matthew 9. He went through all the towns and villages teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. That's two words. Calm meaning with, passion meaning suffering. Because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And so they weren't an opportunity to stroke your ego with a full room or to see your church fill up. They were people, helpless and harassed, that he intended to suffer right alongside. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. Look up. And when you look up, don't look down your nose. Look up with the eyes of compassion at fields that are helpless and harassed without a shepherd. And be compelled by the love of God. Number 4, we have a really complicated relationship with the will of God. I don't know what the will of God is. But I'm convinced in a deep down way, it's really stinking hard. How about you? Let me ask it this way. If the will of God were a food, what food would it be? Probably something we should eat. Probably something we have to eat. It's probably that steamed broccoli that they try to give us here. You're like, dude, you're not even going to roast it. You're going to have to mask that in some cheese if you want me to eat it. I'm taking your steamed cauliflower. The will of God sounded like a dinner bell to Jesus. The will of God, he didn't automatically assume, oh, this is just some hard work that is an opportunity for me to burn calories. He thought the will of God would sustain him. He wanted it. He wanted the will of God. He didn't have to do it. He wanted it. And Jesus, can we all agree, knew the Father a little bit better than the rest of us. And he's like, oh, that guy? Oh, you want whatever he's serving. Oh, I want the will of God. I'm always convinced. Again, I know all the right things to say. Probably so do you. I just say them with a microphone. But when asked, do you want what you're hungry for? It's rarely that I'm hungry for the will of God in and over my life. Jesus was convinced that the will of God was to just finish his work. That's what he said. The will of God is to finish his work. Almost like what's been shared from the pulpit. I know Jerron talked about it. Like, the will of God is to get in on putting away the last toy and celebrate that I put the toys away. That was Jesus' view. God's at work. God's moving. God's lifting. And the will of God for my life is to get in on this. And it's thrilling to me. In fact, I'd rather do that than take a lunch break. I'm always amazed at the people who skip lunch or miss lunch. And then they're like, I just forgot to eat. And I'm like, never in my life have I forgotten lunch. Never in my life have I looked at my watch and been like, well, it's 3. I just worked right through lunch. No, lunch is the best part of my day. This is the hunger, this is the appetite that Jesus has. And he doesn't see the will of God as something that's just going to take or burn calories. He sees the will of God as something that's going to sustain and supply him with what he wants most. What's your view of the will of God? To finish his work. I was thinking about this, and, on that day, there was a great harvest. Jesus stays in Samaria for a couple more days. There's a great harvest of Samaritans. Well, what's interesting is that seed that was sown has an immediate result, and then it also has an eventual result. And when you read the Acts of the Apostles, and you read in Acts chapter 8, you read about a great persecution breaking out against the church in Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. Godly men buried Stephen and mourned deeply for him. He was martyred. He was the first Christian martyr, and this was the persecution that scattered the church. Saul, who would later become Paul, began to destroy the church. Going from house to house, he was dragging off both men and women and putting them in prison. Those who had been scattered laid low, kept their mouths shut because they're persecuted, and nobody wants to hear what they have to say. Philip went down to a city in Samaria and proclaimed the Messiah there. When the crowds heard Philip and saw the signs he performed, they all paid close attention to what he said. For with shrieks, impure spirits came out of many, and many who were paralyzed or lame were healed. So there was great joy in that city. Samaria. Don't you see? The seed that was sown had an immediate result in this woman's life and produced immediate fruit on that day. The seeds that were sown also would produce harvest years down the road. They would continue to yield. And so the one who sows and the one who reaps, they rejoice together. They're both a part of this process. And it's our job to sow. And if you remember one thing from this weekend together, I'm hoping that the words, "do not say 4 more months," haunt you all year. I really do. Even in things like diet, even in things like reading the Word on Tuesday morning, even when you look at your kids and think, "I'd rather watch Sports Center than put them to bed." That might be some of you out there. It's not me. I hope that what comes up, do not delay. Don't say 4 more months. Don't say there's a better time. Obey immediately. Your faith is now. Move. The harvest is upon us. We genuinely believe in Visalia that we're going to double in the next 2 years. And we're not going to double because we have an awesome program. We don't. We're going to double because our people stop saying 4 more months. That every believer makes a believer. That's not even something we came up with. We were at a conference together with this guy, Mac Lake. You know the guy who wrote the books? Lead yourself, lead your mom, lead your mom's mom, that guy. So, I mean, he's given, there's like handles on everything he's giving us. And then there's one guy in the room from Nepal, Western Nepal, who's planting churches in a country where there's an anti-conversion law, like you go to jail if you convert. And he says really simply as we go to pray for him, every believer makes a believer. And I was like, that's better than that guy's books. Quit saying I need another book. Quit saying I have to have all the answers. See with eyes of compassion the sick, the diseased, the downtrodden, the broken, the fatherless. Do for one person what you wish you could do for everyone. Who's one person? Like literally, if we all did this, change our communities. And these aren't big aspirations. This is old information, but Bill Bright said that 2% of us are involved in sharing our faith on a regular basis. 2% of us. Who's one person who's close to you and far from God? What if this year they came to know Jesus and they were incorporated into his body and into this family? You can do this. You can. The Spirit of God, we celebrate Pentecost Sunday yesterday. The Spirit of God is not here to help us have great meetings. The Spirit of God is here to help us live on mission. The sign that we're living on mission is boldness, not just a word in tongues in our sessions, although that would be cool too. Boldness. What's one place that God has established you and given you favor? Well, it's not at church. They don't let me speak. Here's the question again. What's one place where God has established you and lets you speak? And lastly, what's one thing you can do to begin to sow? I know that you can't save them. We get it. And we also know that we've all functioned and probably been overly responsible for people's lives. But what's one thing you can do? I know you can't change their mind. I know you can't get them off drugs. I know. I get it. What's one thing you can do to sow into someone's life? I genuinely believe that this is a word for all of our churches, not just for Visalia. It's go time. It doesn't have to be emotional. You don't even actually have to come to the altar and weep. Again, I'm all for it. Do not say tomorrow. We go now. Would you guys stand with me? Our kids are about to join us to watch kind of our send-off video. So prepare yourselves to get happy and clappy again. Jesus, we thank you for all that you've poured into our lives this weekend, all that we've enjoyed. This is too good to be staring at empty seats. You're too good to not be known and worshiped by all. You're too good. You've been too kind for us to keep our mouths shut. You're too present in our lives to pretend like we're the kings of our little castles. Would you right now, Spirit of God, allow us to finish your work? And would you put on our hearts just one person? They're far from God, but they're actually pretty close to us, and we have favor. So for whatever reason, we have a place in their lives. Would you help us, Lord, with our nearsightedness? Help us to see what's far off and to look past what's right in front of our faces. Help us, Lord, to look over our own bills and see others that are drowning in theirs. Help us to look past our own kids and see kids who are without fathers, without mothers. Help us, Lord, to consider the needs of others greater than our own. Help us, Lord, to lose our lives for the sake of your kingdom. I'm asking that you would double our churches in the next 2 years, Lord. I'm asking, Lord, the buildings are not the problems. We keep talking about buildings. It's not the issue, actually. It's that we just don't want it. We think we're all right. It's good. We love it. We've got everything we need. And that's just not your heart. And that's not the season we're in. And everyone said, amen.
Thanks for listening. We want to be a resource for you as you walk with Jesus. So please connect with us at radiantvisalia.com. Until next time.
There is a heavenly city that I'm compelled to find. Oh, I love the flowers and trees and the smell of the grinding sea and all the beautiful things here in life. And I